Hello, Keith Rucker here at VintageMachinery.org. So we're still working on the spindle for the spindle sander that we're having to make. And we left off, we had one of the pieces broached, and we were still needing to get this piece here with a double broach, an opposite broach. So we'll have two broach keys opposite of one another. So I've already got this piece here. I've got a broach bushing that fits this. It's the right length, everything here. And I've already put the one broach in here, or keyway broach in it, and I showed how to do that on the previous video on a different one, but anyway, I didn't want to repeat all that. But I do want to show you guys how I'm going to index this for doing the double keyway, the opposite keyway. So I've got my broach bushing, and what I need to do is I need to actually index off of this existing key that we've got in here to have it exact opposite, and I'm just going to do that by milling a little 1/4 inch notch in here that we can put a keyway in. So when we put the broach bushing back in here this time, we will actually key it with the key that's in there and have that exact opposite of the slot that's going to cut this broach. So I need to cut that keyway into this upper part of the broach bushing. So I'm over here on the milling machine. I'm going to zoom in here and kind of show you the setup and how we're going to do this. So my vise is still set up from the previous job. I've already got it all trimmed in, everything like that. The slot that is in the keyway bushing here, this is a 3/8 inch slot, and that's what that broach slides in. And of course we'll cut a 1/4 inch keyway with the broach, but the slot that it's sliding here is 3/8. So I got me a piece of, this is actually a piece of 3/8 inch high-speed steel cutter. I put it in the vise where it's just sticking up, and I'm going to just kind of set the bushing down on that and use this as kind of an index to get this where it's now square, so when I mill in the top it'll be perfectly across from the other. Now there's nothing holding that down, so I've kind of rigged up a long reach hold down here. I just took a piece of stock I had laying around the shop, and it's going to go across here, and we'll tighten that down, and that'll just clamp that down directly to the vise, to the top of the vise here, so onto the jaws on the vise. So that should be good enough, and we'll go ahead and do that. So now that should be firmly held in place, and as we can see, this is going to be perfectly up and down based on this piece of stock that's in here that's going to be used to index it with. So you can probably see the setup a little bit better here now. So again, we got this piece of high-speed steel in here that's indexing this straight up and down. We got a hold down clamp, just holding it down, just flush on the vise jaws. And now we're going to find center again, just like we did in the previous video, using our edge finder. Bring the part in until it just scooches over. Right there, I'm going to zero out my DRO. And I'm going to just check that a couple of times, make sure it zeroes out. So that's good. That's good. All right, so now we will go to the other side. Right there, 1.2486. All right, I did this a couple of times. Let me zoom in on the DRO now. So after doing that a couple of times, I ended up sticking here at 1.2476, and before, what I did was I just took this number divided by 2 and then moved back to the center. However, several people in my last video kind of educated me a little bit on my DRO, and I'll be honest with you guys, I don't use a lot of the functions on here all the time, and I get my instructions out every now and then when I want to do like a bolt hole circle, it'll do that, and some other stuff. But there's a half function right here, so all you gotta do is hit that button, select what you want, and that automatically divides it in half. So now what I'm going to do is we'll just basically take this to 0, and when we get to 0 we should be right in the center. All right, so we'll just bring that up, and you're going to have to trust me on the DRO, but I'm going to bring this until it reads 0000 all the way across. Went a little too far there. 3 thousandths to 1 thousandth, and that should be right on center right there. All right, we're going to go ahead and punch this keyway in here. I've got the broach bushing in now, and I got it more or less lined up with the keyway that's already on this side. And again, this is just going to be where I index it. Because of this particular bushing and how much room I have down here, I wasn't able to go the full depth of the keyway. So I basically took a piece of key stock and just ground one side of it down a little thin, but the width is still the same thickness. And I'm just going to take this and we'll just kind of tap that in place. All it needs to be in there is just tight enough to index this and hold it in place. So, and we can press that out the other side, it'll come right out. But now my broach bushing should be exactly 180 degrees apart or across from the original keyway that we broached in here. So we'll go ahead and broach out the second keyway. So I've got both of the keyways in here, and they're just kind of put in here for testing right now. We've got the double keyway cut in the end of the piece here, and this slides right up on there. And it's a little bit tight. Got a little bit of massaging I need to do to it to just get it where it slides on there a little bit easier, but it's fitting. So we're doing real good on this. So we're pretty much through with this. Now next step is go ahead and start assembling this. We got to put the bearing on, make a little piece to pin the bearing in place, and it should be ready to go. Now that we have all the keyways broached and all the keys ready to go in here, the next thing I want to do is, because on both of these parts the piece is actually sliding up and down on the keyway, there's some fear that the keyway can actually move in here, and the original parts actually had the keys pinned in place so that they would stay stationary. What I've decided to do here, instead of pinning them, is we're just going to actually take and put a little screw in here, and that would be easy to take these out if need to for maintenance or whatever down the road. So I've got a couple of 440 screws, and we're just going to drill. I'm going to put 2 screws in each keyway, and I think this is a number 43 drill bit for 440, and then we'll tap it out. So I'm going to go ahead and drill through the keyway and into the metal in 2 places. I'm going to mark my where I'm at on my DRO. So I've got this position zeroed. I'm going to drill it through both. I'm going to move down here. I'll drill it through both, and I'm going to remove the keyway. I'm only going to tap the piece up underneath here, and then I will, on the keyway, I will drill those out just slightly oversized so that the screw will go down through there and countersink this so that will be below the top of the flush here, and it won't interfere with anything. So let's do it. set up now with the 440 tap, and I've just got a little tap wrench in here. There's a spring-loaded tap follower directly above the hole, and that will help keep it aligned as we go in here. I'm going to put a little tap fluid on there, and I'm just going to do this by hand. This is a small, delicate tap, so we want to take our time and not break it off in there. That feels like the bottom of the hole right there will stop. So now I want to go ahead and drill out the keyway so that the screw will just fit right through there. And to do that, I'm just going to do it over here on the drill press. We're just going to, again, just punch these out oversized. And that should allow the screw, to just drop right down in there. We'll do that on the other side. And now I've just got a little countersink in here, and I'm going to countersink the top of that. That's just below surface, right where I want it. Do the other side. And I'll just touch these back sides just to remove any burr that may be on there. So now the key's ready to go ahead and screw down, and we will just take some of these 440 screws. And hopefully they'll go right in. All right. So those screws are down below the surface. They're out of the way where they won't hit anything, and that will keep that key in place and keep it from moving around. So you can kind of follow along where we're at. So we got this keyway in now, and this worm fits up over this key, and it will actually, as the shaft oscillates, I believe this will actually move up and down, slide up and down there. We got good clearance. It's tight, but it moves good. That's what we want. So the next step here is there's a bearing that sits up on this shoulder, and this is the bearing that goes on there, and it's kind of a tight fit right here, which is what we want. In fact, I may have to press that on. It's not a super tight fit. It's just, you see, it's wanting to go. But anyway, it goes up on this shoulder, and what we're going to do, tell you what, let me put that on there real quick. All right, so now you can see that. So this bearing goes on here, and the next thing we have is there's a little bushing that fits up over here, and it's about 7/8 long, I think about 1 inch in diameter, and it is just a bushing that slides up over the shaft and goes up against this inner race, and it will be pinned in place with a tapered pin, and that will basically give a shoulder on both sides of this bearing to hold that bearing in place. So we're going to make this little bushing and go ahead and drill and taper that. So I've got just a little piece of scrap steel here, and we're going to turn this down to 1 inch on the outside. I will probably drill it just a little bit undersized, part it off, and then we'll come back and bore that inside to the right dimension. All right, we're ready to bore it out. We should be pretty close, but we're going to need to take a little bit out of there. So I got a little boring bar set up here, and we'll just punch through. I've installed the bushing onto the shaft here. I've got the bearing in here just to kind of know where to put it. I went ahead and put the keyways in here, the keys in here, and I took a little hammer and just kind of tapped them. So this is nice and snug, and those are kind of held in place right now with just some vice grips just to position them. And what we're going to do now is we're going to go in here and put a center drill in here. We'll drill this out, and then we're going to ream it out to for a taper pin. So I have these tapered pins that will go through here, and basically that will be tapped in place and it will lock that in, but it can be punched out and removed if you need to take the bearing off later on. And we'll have to do that in the process of finishing this project up. I'm going to have to leave the bearing on here to properly position this, so we're going to have to clean this bearing out real good, hopefully get any trash or whatever that's in there. In fact, I may try to tape that up or something just to keep anything from getting in there. But the tapered pin, again, the tapered reamer will go through here. We'll ream that out and then drive the taper pin in. So hopefully that tape will keep anything from getting up in that bearing. We're going to start by just center drilling this, getting a good place to start on. That should be good. Next, we'll drill this just slightly undersized. I think this was a number 19 drill bit. I just measured the smaller end of the reamer, and I'm going with that size. Now I've just got a reamer here, tapered reamer. And we'll ream it out to size. So hopefully you can see the taper pin fits in and goes through there. And what I'm going to do now is we're going to take just a hammer, we'll tap that into place, get it good and tight, and then I'm going to cut these off. We'll put this back on the lathe and just turn them down basically flush with this. And then they can be driven in and out down the road, and we should have a good fitting taper there to hold that in place. We took the pin, I hit it in there with a hammer, got it seated in real good and tight. I took a hacksaw and just cut the ends off that's sticking out proud, but it's still not flush. So we're just going to go in here now, remove the bearing off. We're just going to turn this down, just barely fuzz across there, and really not changing the diameter, but I want to get the pin turned to the same diameter as the bushing. So hopefully you can see that now. That you can see the pin, but it's turned down flush with the bushing, just like we want it. So now I need to go ahead and put in the last two keyways, and these need to be screwed down just like the other ones were. So we'll go ahead and set up and do this again. So I think we are ready now to do the final assembly. So I've already got this keyway in. We'll put the worm onto the shaft. Next goes the bearing. And let me take this over to the Arbor press and press that on real quick. That bearing is just snug. It's not really what I would call tight. Next we'll slide this piece on. A little retaining bushing. Take my taper pin. Take my taper pin here. All right, that's locked in. Now we will put our keys back on here. There we go. I made these keys where they would only fit on one way, so that way they always go back together exactly right. I also didn't want those holes that I was drilling tapping to be in line with one another, just to make sure we have plenty of material on either side. All right, put the other pin on here. And finally, the bottom piece. So this whole assembly is together. I believe this is now ready to send back to Scott, and hopefully he can get this put back on his machine and get it operational again. So Scott, I think we got you all fixed up. I'm gonna go ahead and put this in the mail, send it back to you. If you have any problems or need to make any modifications, by all means just let me know. But I think we're gonna be in good shape. So that'll wrap up this series on making this custom spindle for the Syracuse oscillating spindle sander. And maybe if we're lucky we can get Scott to shoot some video of the finished machine running so you guys kind of see the application when it's all said and done. Thanks a lot for watching. We'll talk to you guys later.